Welcome to the deep dive. We take interesting sources and, well, pull out the knowledge you need fast.
That's the plan.
Today, we're digging into something called a morning Murli, specifically one from April 26th, 2025. It's like a daily piece of spiritual guidance.
Exactly. Think of it as focused instruction, meant for personal growth. Within its tradition, it's often seen as, well, direct communication aimed at guiding people.
Okay, so our mission today is to really unpack the core messages in this particular Murli, especially this idea about moving from, ordinary people towards something more divine.
That's the core theme, yes. Transforming into deities. We want to see what insights it offers on self-awareness, our actions, and just general spiritual progress.
Sounds fascinating. Expect some maybe surprising perspectives today. Right, let's jump in. The Murli starts by calling the audience most elevated Brahmins of the Confluence Age. That sounds important.
It really sets the stage. Confluence Age points to a special time, a transition period. Like the cusp between night and day, an old era ending and a new one beginning. It's seen as a time ripe for transformation.
So being an elevated Brahmin in this specific time, it suggests a higher awareness, maybe a bigger responsibility.
Precisely. A heightened state, yes, during this crucial period of change.
And you mentioned this is linked to becoming deities. That's a huge goal. How does that connect?
Well, the Murli ties it directly to needing divine virtues. So, to move toward that deity ideal, you need to actively cultivate qualities like, purity, love, peace, wisdom, the stuff you'd associate with the divine.
Makes sense. But wow, keeping that elevated identity in mind all day, every day, that sounds like a real challenge. I mean, with everything going on.
Oh, definitely. The text acknowledges it's tough. But interestingly, it also says that even remembering this potential just for a bit is considered great fortune.
So even a little bit counts.
Seems so. And it adds that progress is number-wise.
Number-wise, meaning?
Meaning everyone progresses differently at their own pace. It's not a uniform thing. Your effort determines your stage. So yeah, small steps in remembering are still valuable.
Okay. Then there's this really direct question in the Murli about what should you add? Brahmin children remain very, very cautious. And why? Feels like a key instruction.
It absolutely is. And the answer zeroes in on being cautious about committing sinful acts all through the day.
Sinful acts. And the why?
The why is quite profound. It's the idea that a principle of divine justice, which is called Dharamraj here, is essentially present, watching, you could say.
Ah, so it's about a really heightened sense of accountability, knowing your actions are being noted and have consequences.
Exactly that. And to help with this, the Murli gives some pretty direct questions for self-reflection. Things like, have I caused sorrow for anyone? Or to what percentage do I follow Shrimat? And even, do I follow the dictates of Ravan?
Okay, those last two terms, Shrimat and dictates of Ravan, we need to unpack those.
Right, so Shrimat is basically the guidance, the directions given by the Father, the divine source in this teaching. It's like your spiritual compass pointing towards your best self.
And Ravan's dictates.
That represents the opposite. It's symbolic of our own ego, our negative habits, desires, the things that pull us off course, away from that positive direction. Think of it as the internal struggle, maybe. Your higher guidance versus lower impulses.
Got it. Now, here's where it got really stark for me, the consequences. It talks about a 100-fold punishment for every sinful act if you commit it after connecting with this teaching, compared to just 10-fold before. Why such a massive increase?
It's intense, isn't it?
Yeah.
The underlying idea seems to be that with greater knowledge comes greater responsibility. Once you understand the path, understand the impact of your actions, or choosing to act negatively, well, the consequence is seen as much more significant.
Because you know better, essentially.
Pretty much.
Yep.
And these actions, the Murli says, lead to a settling of accounts. You experience the results.
It also mentions, how people often seek forgiveness for past mistakes. That's a common human thing. But it contrasts this with a future golden age where forgiveness isn't even needed. What's that about?
The idea there is that in a state of complete purity, of complete alignment with divine principles, the need for forgiveness disappears because those kinds of mistakes just aren't made. It highlights the potential of this confluence age to actually move beyond that cycle of messing up and needing to fix it.
Okay, so how do you navigate this? With this higher accountability, aiming for that purer state, the Murli really stresses remembering. Remembering Abba, the Father.
Yes, remembrance is positioned as the key tool. It's the way to purify the self connect with that divine source, and sort of dissolve the negative karma or consequences of past actions. It helps cultivate those positive divine virtues we talked about.
And the Father's teachings themselves, their purpose is this transformation.
Explicitly, yes. The Murli says the teachings are given to transform individuals into deities, into these virtuous beings.
But it's not just sitting and remembering, is it? There's a clear link to doing something spiritual service.
Absolutely, they're connected. Constant remembrance is meant to fuel action, specifically sharing this knowledge, this understanding, and helping guide others. And doing it cheerfully, too. Radiating positivity as part of it. Showing the path.
Right, being cheerful. Then the Murli talks about impurity and purity. It introduces this idea of the kingdom of Ravan being dominant right now in Farat and the world. That's not literal, I assume.
No, it's symbolic. It represents the current state of the world, which is described as Tamil Pratan,
Tamil Pratan.
meaning impure or dominated by inertia and negativity. It suggests a general lack of spiritual awareness across the globe. This is then contrasted sharply with the vision of a new world, the golden age, which is pure, where only these pure, virtuous beings reside.
And Ravan is the force driving this impurity through body consciousness and vices. Can you break down body consciousness?
Sure. Ravan, again, symbolically represents those negative forces pulling us down. Body consciousness is basically over-identifying with your physical body, your possessions, your roles, leading to ego, attachment, all that stuff.
Okay.
And the vices, like anger, greed, lust, they stem from that body consciousness. They're the devilish directions, the impulses driven by the ego instead of the soul or the Father's guidance.
And the Father's role is the purifier.
Exactly. The one who comes specifically to cleanse this impurity caused by Ravan and body consciousness and help souls return to their original pure state.
There's also this sense of urgency, brief mentions of war and death being imminent. What's the purpose of bringing that up?
It seems to emphasize the temporary nature of this current world order. It links understanding this impermanence to your spiritual focus. Basically, time is limited, so prioritize your spiritual efforts, remembrance, and service now during this confluence age. Don't delay.
Makes sense. And the ultimate goal is aspirational. Become like the Father, the ocean of knowledge, and the ocean of happiness.
That's the ideal, yes. The Murli points out deities are praised as being full of all virtues, but then notes that, well, most humans right now are not full of those virtues.
So it prompts a kind of self-assessment.
Exactly. How are you doing in cultivating these virtues? How much progress are you making towards claiming that higher spiritual status? It's a call to actively work on yourself.
Which brings us to the practical application. It's not enough just to remember. You have to do something. Study, teach.
Right. The Murli is quite direct. If you're not teaching others, it suggests you haven't really understood or imbibed the knowledge yourself. It's about both internalizing it and sharing it.
And then this phrase, spin the discus alongside remembrance. What's that about? It sounds a bit cryptic.
It does. The Murli doesn't elaborate much there, but the discus, in this context, often symbolizes the cycle of time, creation, world history. So spinning the discus likely means contemplating these broader spiritual concepts, understanding the big picture of the world cycle, alongside the personal practice of remembrance.
So thinking deeply about the knowledge.
Probably. But the core, simple instruction remains. Consider yourself a soul. Remember the Father. That's the essence.
It also talks about renunciation. True versus incomplete. What's the key difference there?
True renunciation isn't necessarily about giving up things externally. It's about renouncing body consciousness internally. That attachment to the physical self, the ego, the material world. Detachment from within.
As opposed to just pretending or only giving up surface things.
Exactly. And it connects that body consciousness directly to negative behaviors. Lying, stealing, even speaking loudly or aggressively. So reforming those habits requires that inner shift, moving away from body consciousness.
And if you don't follow the Father's directions, the shremet.
The message is consistent. The punishment, the negative consequences increase. It really emphasizes self-discipline. It even suggests literally keep a chart to monitor your actions and thoughts.
Wow, like a spiritual progress tracker.
Kind of. And it encourages explaining this knowledge to others, maybe using exhibition pictures or other tools.
And the core message you should be sharing.
It boils down to this. There is only one God. No one else can be God. And understanding the Father's role as Father, Teacher, and Satguru, the true guide, like a single source for salvation, a one shop.
Okay, so pulling it all together, the essence of Dharna, actually imbibing these teachings, what are the absolute must-dos?
Two main things stand out. First, overcome body consciousness and the negative habits linked to it. get beyond just identifying with the physical.
Right.
Second, consistently follow Shramat, the Father's directions. That's the path to becoming pure, avoiding those sinful acts, and therefore avoiding the negative consequences or punishment.
Makes sense. The Murli then ends with a blessing and a slogan. The blessing mentions earning the throne of the kingdom through selfless thoughts aligned with the Father's will, and this Lokpasan Sabha.
Yeah, the Lukpasan Saba translates roughly as the public assembly or assembly liked by the world. Earning a place there, gaining that right to the throne, seems to be about achieving a high spiritual status through selfless service that benefits everyone, all done according to the Father's guidance. It's about earning spiritual merit.
And the slogan, experience God's company and you will remain safe while experiencing everything easily. That sounds reassuring.
It does. It suggests that maintaining that inner connection, that remembrance, gives you a kind of inner strength and safety. It helps you navigate whatever life throws at you with more ease and peace.
And finally, there's an Avyak signal about the combined form.
Yes. Remain constantly victorious with the awareness of the combined form. It uses powerful imagery. Shiv Shakti, divine power and consort. Pandavpati, leader of the righteous, with the Pandavas, his followers, all representing unity and strength.
So the idea is the power in that connection.
Exactly. Feeling that combined presence, Baptada's presence, the Father, and the subtle form of the first human soul in all your relationships, in everything you do, that constant awareness, that feeling of the Lord always being with you, is presented as the key to remaining victorious internally.
Wow. Okay. That was definitely a deep dive into that, Murli. It's quite something how much guidance is packed into these daily messages.
It really is. I think the key takeaways for you listening are pretty clear.
Yeah.
The constant need for that self-awareness, for ethical action, the power found in remembrance and selfless service, and just that ongoing effort towards spiritual growth, towards those higher qualities.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you to take away and reflect on. How could really internalizing this idea, this potential for becoming more divine or embodying these virtues, practically change how you approach your day, your choices, your interactions, starting right now? Definitely something to chew on.
A powerful question. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive today.